So my name is Richard Waring, and I'm a member of the Workshop for Publishing Poets, started by Barbara Helfgott Hyatt. And tonight, we are very happy to have with us Jonathan Aibel and Francis Lunney. And I will say that I did owe Fran a beer one time. We were trying to get into Appalachian Magazine, and he won out, so I had to buy him a beer over at Christopher's in Porter Square. Still a little roughed up by that, but that's Fran for you. He's excellent. So I want to start out by once again saying, happy Guy Fawkes Day, bonfire night, and I'm very sad to report that we've lost one of our members, Carly Carrara, who wrote Two-Faced Doll. She died in June 11th, one day after her 83rd birthday. So very sorry to hear about that. It's also, yesterday was C.K. Williams' birthday, although he wasn't alive to celebrate, but he was Barbara Helfgott Hyatt's mentor. So there's definitely Barbara energy in the air. So I like to give a few quotes once in a while, and this one is from Robert Benchley, who was part of the Algonquin Roundtable with other famous people like Dorothy Parker. And he once wrote, "There are two kinds of people in the world. Those who believe there are two kinds of people in the world and those who don't." And if you think about it, it's really hard to fathom. Well, Denise Levertov says, "I'm not very good at praying, but what I experience when I'm writing a poem is close to prayer." That's something I really relate to. And especially important for tonight, poetry has been described as a migratory process where the journey of the poem is complete only when the poem reaches the ear of the listener by being read out loud. And following up on that, Robert Pinsky says, "Reading a poem silently instead of saying a poem is like the difference between staring at sheet music and actually humming or playing the music on an instrument." So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce our first featured poet of the night, Francis Lunney. He's a poet from Salem, Massachusetts. He's an elementary school reading specialist in Manchester by the Sea. Whenever possible, he heads off to kayak, hike, and fly fish. His poems have appeared or are forthcoming in Southern Review, Southern Poetry Review, Sugar House Review, Salamander, Tar River Poetry, and especially Appalachian Magazine, as well as elsewhere. He has a poem exhibited in the Newton's Edmonds Park and had one of his poems read on the air on WCAI Radio, Cape Cod's NPR affiliate. A longtime member of the PoemWorks workshop community, he is working at long last on his first chapbook collection. Please welcome, Fran Lunney.
Thank you, Richard, for the introduction, and thank you everybody for coming. And it's great to be here. It's exciting. I have my mom, my aunt, many friends. We have Brooklyn in the house. We have my brother Mike. We have my friend in Vermont. So we have lots of people here, and thank you everyone for coming. Colorado, I saw. So really nice to have everyone here. Richard, I don't know if you could see behind you, but I have a little Barbara Helpgott artifact. Can you see the painting on the wall?
Yes, from her wonderful
Um,
book on endangered species.
Some reason, yeah, I don't know if you could see it, but so that's the cover of one of Barbara's books.
Yeah,
And
love
I
it.
also have Barbara's very famous poetry mug. Don't make me use my poetry voice. So,
Oh, that's great.
all right. Richard, I'm getting you on the speaker view. Is there something that I need to fix or no?
Well, I think that what I have on my screen is what gets recorded, and I have
Oh,
you
okay.
as full screen. What do
Oh,
other
okay.
people see?
I see you.
Only me?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, let that be an inspiration to you.
It will, it will. All right, I'm gonna get started. So I grew up in New York City, but my family bought a house when I was about 11 or 12 years old in a little town in Pennsylvania. And so these right on the Delaware River. And these first 3 or 4 poems are kind of inspired by life in middle school in that little tiny town. So I used to do a lot of fishing with my father. So there's the late 70s, and it's called Fishing at 12 years old. I stand where the tiny creek flows into the river. My father downstream, where a wall of rocks breaks the current and forms a deep eddy that holds browns. When he yells for me, I run along the rocks to wade into the river next to him, breathless. He shows me how to wet my hands and guide a trout upstream before letting it slip into the current. We want to stay forever. Copper spinners fluttering across the riffles, balsa wood minnows coaxed just below the surface. The tall grass casts dark shadows. The moonless night arrives too soon.
Nice.
Next poem is called Foundation. The house we had was not exactly in great shape, so there was a lot of work to do. Foundation. We lie in the cellar dirt and steady the rotten beams beneath the kitchen floor. Rebuild what's been swept away by floodwaters. It's my job to hold a flashlight, to mix gritty mortar in a 5-gallon pail, boil water in the kettle for our tea, and run to the store for my father's cigarettes. Beneath the dilapidated house, we escape our disappointments, cementing stones, stabilizing the water-damaged sill with braces, digging a trench next to the road that trains the rainwater that flows down Grocery Hill. I lift my end of the dozen heavy stones we need to set the walls back in place. We have never been closer than in that cramped space, leveling each beam, securing each sagging floorboard. We finish our work, scratch our names in the wet cement.
Beautiful. What a tribute.
This next poem is called Elegy for a Dying Neighbor. His rasping breath is a strange night bird. I imagine him younger, long before I was born. High cheekbones, thin, his yard wild with thistle and crabgrass. He takes an axe to branches, a maple fallen across the path to his woodshed. He stings his hands on brambles, rolls up shirt sleeves to pick the wild raspberries his wife loves. Late summer, the cough takes him. The night is quiet except for the river. I watch the water for trout holding close. on the green steel bridge with a rusty pocket knife. I sketch a bird in an empty heart. Resurrecting a songbird.
Mm.
It was a goldfinch, a bright male that must have been knocked from the branch. Pinch of white breast quivering when I found him. He was dead before I wrapped him in my flannel shirt and carried him home. In the kitchen, I pushed aside school books, my father's spools of thread, unfolded the oilcloth across the table, found the coffee tin that held my tools, preening wax, horsehair brush, tweezers for unclenching a stiffened claw. I revived his lemon-colored feathers with a rag soaked in linseed, extended the wings in flight. With unsteady hands, I scissored muscle from his chest, wrapped the organs in waxy brown paper, rubbed borax with my fingers inside the cavity to preserve the flesh. I stripped the membrane that held his heart, filled the emptiness with sawdust and wadded cotton, whistled a few notes of birdsong, what little I could remember.
Oh my God.
All right.
Devastating.
Thank you. So I'm going to move out of that middle school phase, that awkward middle school phase, and I'm an adult in these next poems, which is good because the next poem takes place in a bar and I'm drinking and I waited till high school. Sorry, Mom. But anyway, so this is called Miniature, and it came out of a little hitchhiking trip and a time I spent in Iowa City, and just somebody I met there made me think of this scene. Miniature. At the corner tavern, the woman who tends bar slices lemons and oranges that become floating wheels, whistles songs about the river and pretty girls who have everything. When the afternoon turns slow, I watch her whittle a red-throated, ruby-throated hummingbird before she sets the chisel down to pour a beer for the regular who takes a seat near the door. Does she know that his children left town years ago? There's sadness, even in the way he counts his change. I watch her finish that bird's delicate breast, place it in his hands, then will it to fly.
Mm.
So in my early 20s, my first teaching job was at a small boarding school in Vermont, and I didn't get paid very much money. And I decided after that first year that I was going to go on a trip to Ireland with my friends, and we had a great old time and probably found every pub in Galway. And I came back with about $9 to my name, and I decided it was a good time to learn how to pick apples because otherwise I was going to starve till school started, and I got my first paycheck. So this poem comes out of my experience picking apples in Putney, Vermont, and I wasn't particularly good at it. And in this poem, I imagine somebody came along to help me maybe do it a little better. It's called St. Francis in the Orchard. We pick apples by the bin alongside workers from Jamaica and the Deep South. He teaches me to pick from the low, easy branches, how to set a ladder against gnarled trunks. He climbs, searches for fruit and crowns, stretches long arms into the smallest branches as the treetops sway. Late afternoon, the foreman comes, shakes his head at the fruit in my bin that cannot be sold. Apples destined for the cider press, skin torn off, soft dark bruises spreading outward. After the foreman is gone, he shows me how to let the apples roll gently down my arms and into the bin without harm. Another morning, he wakes in the dark, leaves before dawn, before the next harvest. And I have, I think about five more poems. So I kind of moved west of the Mississippi here. And 2 years ago, I was really lucky and I had the chance to take a leave of absence from my teaching job and managed to keep myself afloat for a year and lived in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And this poem comes out of that year and living just a little ways from the Snake River, about a mile from the Snake River. So this is called Clouds on Snake River. I made a shrine to the bear hid on the icy highway. Its dying breath, a pool of blood and fur on the roadside, a reminder of everyone I ever cared about. The cemetery is filled with them. Grandmother, my uncles, the stepsister who took her own life in sadness. They sit on lawn chairs and beckon me. I lit candles and gathered willow branches. I slept alone in heavy blankets beneath winter stars. My father came to me in a dream again, helped me with my grade school science project, a working telephone, palm-sized speaker, earpiece, a bundle of colored wires wrapped around strong magnets. I heard faint static in his voice, like heavy snow falling in the darkness. And the next little group of poems, I sort of at the end of college, I caught a ride. I sort of hitched a ride with one of my college professors who was going to Boulder, Colorado. And I just thought that sounded like a great idea. And my brother, who's out there, always did some hitchhiking and it sounded like fun. So I got a ride with my professor to Boulder. And I stayed with my sister who lived there for a while. And it was eventually time to go home. I'd had a lot of fun. And I actually had a friend who was trying to help me get to Jackson Hole, and I was going to do some fishing. And I might have been a little crazy and staying out late. And so my sister was happy to drive me the first leg to Laramie. And so this is about my trip out of Laramie. And I wound up being on the road for 10 days. I never did make it to Jackson, but these are 3 poems that came out of that 10-day trip from Laramie and eventually back to Boulder. Hitchhiking from Laramie. Under the cab's dome light, I helped the outlaw trucker navigate secondary highways, commit his prison tattoos to memory. A grim reaper draped in a Confederate flag, mother scrawled across a withering bicep. Beneath his knuckles, a crude inked rendition of love, hate. Over the miles, the stories of 2 ex-wives, children he rarely sees. He confesses to a rage that consumes him, the Black man he stabbed to death without hesitation. By Provo, barely talking, we drink lousy coffee at the state line truck stop before driving through the darkness of the Nevada desert. With the lights of Reno in the distance, I stare out the window, curse him in whispers, feign sleep. Three days in Roosevelt, Utah. I wanted to stay the night in her roadside trailer, but her mother stops for coffee every morning, so she leaves me in a field on the outskirts of town. Here, I pitch my blue tent on the flattest ground and lie down. The sky remains light, and I am already dreaming she will return. I hear tires on gravel during the night, the sound of a car door opening in the distance. I look out on a rosary of early morning stars. Dawn arrives with desert reds. On the other side of town, she wakes to a flock of sparrows circling the same rose-colored sky. Near Berkeley. Still cold with only a light blanket for shelter, I rise to the stairs of early morning dog walkers. I dreamed of you, Mother, for the first time in years. That summer day when we rode the tilt-a-whirl on the boardwalk at Asbury Park. The metal seat shifting back and forth so hard we thought it would come undone. Was there ever a day like this one when it was just the two of us? Our fists clenched as the bar crossed over, then caught the latch. The feeling afterwards as we walked in circles, trying to gather our place in the world again. All morning, your name inked on my hand. I should call you. I should come home soon. And thank you for listening so far. I'm going to read one more poem, and this is for Barbara. This is the last poem I workshop with Barbara, and I can remember almost everything that she said and everything I learned from working on this poem with Barbara. And also for Jonathan, who's reading next and is a great guy, and he asked me to read this, so I had to sneak it in. And there's a poem about Wilson Bentley, who was Wilson, they called him Snowflake because he basically was the first person who figured out how to photograph a snow crystal and capture the beauty of what snowflakes looked like up close. He used a microscope, and he was a little obsessive kid who wound up figuring out how to do it. And all those snowflakes that we made as kids and pasted up on the windows of the elementary school, I think all those pictures came from his designs and his pictures. And so this is for Snowflake Bentley and for Barbara and for Jonathan. So I'm now calling it Symmetry. Symmetry. After reading about Wilson Snowflake Bentley, photographer, I catch snowflakes in a velvet box in a forest of yellow birch and sugar maple, lungs filled with gathering cold. The tripod legs of my giant camera break the ice, a crow calling as the first flakes drift. I lift crystals with a feather onto a glass microscope slide, adjust the pulse of knobs and dials. I experiment with the camera, the smallest aperture, long exposures, nature's designs coming into focus, hexagonal arms, dendrite stars, perfect symmetry, its own miracle. What is delicate quickly melts away. Summer nights, I hang a bed sheet on a neighbor's clothesline, project slides of winter's beauty for the children of Jericho. And thank you. Thank you. Thanks. All right. Thank you, guys.
Ow.
All right. Thanks so much. I have two more poems that are not mine, but two more I'm going to read before we turn it over to Jonathan. And Richard, I don't know if you want to say anything about Barbara's collection, or you want me to, would you like to say something?
Well, just that she has a collection called Come Thunder, which is going to be published by Lily Poetry Press Review. And we're kind of promoting it in advance with these readings. So it's a wonderful project that was introduced by Alexis Ivy with a
Sorry, I don't know what header is.
Oh, wait a minute. Alexa. And and with an afterword by Eric Hyatt. So take it away, Fran.
Sure. This book is going to be such a treat to all Barbara's many fans. And I was getting choked up reading some of these poems today, trying to choose the ones I wanted to read. I chose two from the first section of Barbara's book is Atlantic City. And most of the poems are her as a child and some as a teenager. So in this one, I think she's about maybe in middle school or so, or maybe upper elementary. Report card. Barbara is not a good citizen, Miss Bloom wrote. Aren't I the one who helps the others in cursive writing? Don't I always stand as proud as a flagpole on the auditorium stage on Veterans Day? Isn't that American enough? I am first lieutenant of safety patrol, first girl ever to hold the post, busiest corner, Massachusetts Avenue and Pacific. Spreading my arms out like gull's wings. I glue my eyes to the light, red, yellow, me standing the tallest by green. Snap and I turn sideways, waving my starched gold button gloved hand for the other school children to cross. Sometimes I have to count on Nick, the traffic cop, to stop a city bus for me. The whole world waiting, and I, the law's white harness girl with the spit shine badge. When I say go, everyone goes.
Oh, that's great.
And you really can see Barbara in that poem. You know, it's fabulous. And this is one I think many of us have heard, and it's really wonderful. And Alexis Ivy, I asked her, I wanted to read one for Alexis as well. So Alexis, this is for Barbara, and of course also for you. And when you get your hands on that book, Alexis's introduction is another poem in and of itself. It's really beautiful tribute. Sorry, that got me a little that got me a little verklempt. I made it all the way to the end. All right, let me hold it together. I never let's see, here we go. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I never said I love you best. I suffered, but I want to read that title one more time. Sorry. I never said I love you best. I suffered beside them, the two bears my mother pushed to one side of my pillow because they crowd the bed. I was just wanting to sleep between them. I worried who to bring closest to my ear, who to leave by the headboard. I loved Squeaky best, the oldest and barely still brown. So much more did I love him. But Reddy, carnival prize my brother won for me, Reddy, who was neither soft nor pretty, how I pitied him and dared not hurt his feelings. I tried to stay awake, denying my dreams their outcome, and longed for Squeaky. Still, I talked to Reddy. I love you, I told him. Now go to sleep. Sometimes he would, and sometimes he wouldn't, since he couldn't really trust me.
Oh, so wonderful. Thank you, Fran.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate everybody coming and looking forward to hearing everybody read. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So I don't get to see what is on other people's screens. Did you see me the whole time, or did you see Fran in the large rectangle?
Fran.
Yeah, whoever's speaking.
Fran.
Okay,
Fran.
good. Because, you know, if you get tired of looking at somebody, you can always spotlight somebody else by going up into the top right corner of people's images. Okay, well, wonderful, wonderful reading. Oh, my heart is just singing. And what you say about birds, I mean, unbelievable. Just an Audubon of poetry, really. Up next, we've got Jonathan Aibel. His voice has been heard around the Boston area. He has read at Chapter and Verse in the Brookline Poetry Series, where he's also a frequent contributor to their open mic. Jonathan studied with Lucy Brock-Broido as she summered in Cambridge, as well as with Joan Houlihan and Barbara Helfgott Hyatt. Jonathan's poems have been published or will soon appear in Lily Poetry Review, Nick's Mate, Chautauqua, the American Journal of Poetry, Pangarus, and elsewhere. I too have been published in Elsewhere. Jonathan is a former software engineer who lives in Concord with his wife, son, and cat, who, like most cats, is a poem unto himself. Please welcome Jonathan.
Thank you, Richard. Franny, you're a hard act to follow. Barbara's a hard act to follow too. So
You'll be great, Jonathan. Looking forward to it.
yeah, dendrite stars in the symmetry. What a beautiful phrase. And I can really hear Barbara in those two poems that you selected. My first poem is actually one of the first poems I brought to Barbara's table to work on. So I thought it appropriate to bring here. It's called Wet Sunday. My heart, a Boston street so narrow and potholed that people drive a block or two frustrated before turning off to seek a less rumpled way. I want to bear the echoes of traffic, all thrum, all welcome public works, scrape asphalt, ancient cobbles, resurface my inappropriate movements. How can I ever fall? My heart a rebellious street, uncompassed and impassable to everything I want for myself. This is more recent work that I wrote during my last travel, which was February of last year, February 2020, just before all the shutdowns happened. My family took a trip. It included Washington, D.C., and that inspired American Dollar. I am a dollar, an American dollar, in the peach soft hand of a tourist, in D.C. to see the monuments to America's glory. The tourist wants to be America as she dreams herself, truth and justice, the beautiful, multicolored e pluribus, friend to all. I am the dollar the world chases. Spanish explorers, French voyagers, English colonists, Cantonese laying rail, German Catholics, Norwegian farmers, Jewish ragmen, Viet, Korean, Nisei, Brahmin H1B, Cubans, seeking the streets I paved with gold. Hear them singing as they migrate. Even Africans bilbowed two at a time. I stood on their wingless backs as they raised the city of white stone. I pushed aside the nations who crossed the drowned bridge, but still they sing. I am the imprisoned lightning, America, my glorious promise still unmet, sending troops to all corners in promise. I myself am good fortune. The Army veteran on the corner of 14th and Constitution Ave, served in Iraq, still waits on the VA for housing. His hand reaches out to America. The vet longs to be bright and free, even as the tourist thanks him. The vet needs freedom, needs the dollar. The tourist passes him. I am that dollar, the crumpled bill in the vet's sweaty palm.
Hmm. Wow.
That was awesome.
This one is called How Fragile She Was. The first day my mom went completely sad. Dad closed the window shades in their room. Sunlight curdled all it touched. I fell off my counter and gathered my G.I. Joes, the blue stuffed hippo and plush Snoopy, king of all my stuffies, and faded into my closet where the ceiling sloped from roof to floor. It was no good. Lonely is the very opposite of a good boy. Be as quiet as Mom's porcelain sheep and not to move.
Hmm.
That one was actually published in the Patterson Literary Review this summer.
Wow.
This
Wow.
past summer. And this is another poem that I workshopped at Barbara's table. 5-card stud. I try to teach myself poker. Deal 5 hands all to myself. My bluffs fail. My tells give me away and I lose my pants. To the house, sent to the kitchen to wash other people's food off dishes for my debt. A hard bargain I struck. Disappointed with myself, I guess. I should not have tried to cheat or not have done it so poorly that I caught myself. And this is one that was selected by the Lily, so thank you very much, Eileen Cleary, who I met at Lucy's table, but now have known for years. And if you haven't read Child Ward of the Commonwealth, you really should. It's very good. Disappointments. The machines weren't as interesting as I hoped. Not like Star Trek, Dr. McCoy waving a salt shaker and quiet electronic throbs. No, the MRI's demented alarm clock circled your head. You got industrial strength earplugs, unable to hear me out in the waiting, too far, but still listening. Fighting claustrophobia, you sang yourself show tunes, you told me later, Oklahoma, then flower drum song. Meningioma, we tasted the word, argued what to say to your mother, my father, explained to our son. We held hands as they gave us a tour of treatments, high energy x-rays shot from half a giant Bell phone handset, multi-leaf collimators hidden inside, healing invisibly, no swirling lights, red beams, or holographic images. Even the gamma knife is only a frame your head fits in, with a plastic dome. Not something the Hulk would yield to crush the evil that hides in your skull, among who I love, and what I do not and am unable to say. And I'll explain that the patient here is my wife. This is from several years ago, and she has fortunately made a full recovery.
Wonderful.
I'll just warn you, this next one is quite long. I've been experimenting in the past year with longer pieces, and I hope I don't write one longer than this. Vigil. How hard it is to leave. Watch the night beside my mother's bed as her breath rolls out and in, inescapable. My brother asleep on the sofa, I hold the box with the red button, morphine. Press every 20 minutes. We three shift currents of air. Our own rhythms in sleep and darkness share breaths. I count minutes. This room she built to her desire, a solarium of 3 glass walls and roof to let in daylight, now reflects in the dim night the 3 souls inside, waves of breath in pelagic dark, press every 20. Against the faint sky glimmer, through the ceiling oak and elm, older than the house, silent columns about our sanctuary fishbowl. Her office, now a bedroom with hospital cot. So she could watch the passage of light, sons, nurses, and husband circling the waters about her bed. Those trees inhale the carbon we discard, unmindful of quick animal lives, worship the sun that feeds, and reach down, split rocks, allow birds and squirrels to make homes, provide deer seeds, leaves and tender bark in long vegetable conversation, and dream without morphine. Beyond sight clings steep hill road, where a lone motorcycle flashes its single headlamp on distant trunks, flickers the endless march of telephone poles, stiffly carrying cables that feed the neighborhood, the power and telephone connecting this room in a great web of my family, our neighbors, Eversource, the town, churches, empty and sleeping schools, and government humming lullabies to themselves as I watched the digital clock on her desk. Why is it not as easy as falling asleep? A slow surrender to the wave that breaks on the furthest shore, the one we cannot see. No. It is like a return from vacation on the Cape. So much fun to have stayed so long that it seems short. Everything fun and beautiful that you hate to go. Find all sorts of excuses to delay. Sand at the bottom of a suitcase, so it has to be unpacked and shaken out. One last trip to Marion's pie shop. One last sunset behind Boston at Skakit Beach. How can anyone just leave? Mom's toes are cold. Adjust her blankets. Sit back and stare into the sky. Eyes as heavy as my chest. The great current of air, buoyant, lifts me through the glass. Gentle into the trees, look down on the small nest of humans around her bed. The sky wide and deep, deep, dark with undertows that carry me further, higher, above trees, town, electrical transformers, the community of the world, to the very edge of the planetary ocean, air thin and gasping. Airplanes with red-eyed flyers far below, satellites almost within reach, the shore of Earth's breath, and the silence. My mother passed away in 2006. That was a night. The past 18 months, I've been wrestling with multiple myeloma. Eric Healthcott Hyatt had said, oh, keep a diary right through the chemo and everything. And it was very draining. And I'm only just now processing the feelings as I'm still recovering, but I'm just now starting to write about it. This poem refers to Dex, or dexamethasone, which is a steroid I took the night before my infusions to boost the effects of my chemo. So it's called Infusion Day. Awake to that special pitch. In my voice, eyes wide to cerulean, windows whistling. I'm in love. I'm in blue, sky, fall. Oh, Dex, you make me hop. You make me bubble and leap out my own skin. My guts knot and dance to your tune as I tried to remember who I was before I took you. You make me into Times Square at New Year's, jumbled with a crowd, reveling, dancing, sick, drunk, cold, each one of me lonely and trying to forget the trouble that has led me to you, oh dexamethasone. I'm going to stay up all night. I'm going to read fortunes in my stars, the few I can see. I'm going to talk all over myself, all my shivering, drunken selves, tripping over myself's, an ocean of me's, roaring, stuffing my faces with street food, knowing I'll regret everything tomorrow or maybe next week. Sure to joyfully vomit on my own shoes. I'm all appetite, all damned river, looking for a pipe or a crack to crash through. Dex, you make me flow backward. You make me rise at night and set at dawn, laughing, crying, pleading to let me sleep. After this, Dex, I swear I am never speaking to you.
Oh my God.
And I'll say that it's a steroid, but it's not one of those good steroids that's, going to make me into a great athlete.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Great poem.
Sorry?
Sorry, I just unmuted, sorry. That was a great poem though.
One more on the on the experiences. MRI. It's like going to a spa where you change your street clothes for the simplest shift and divest yourself of worldly goods, money, watches, jewelry, until it is just me, wrapped in cotton, my only inheritance, bones, flesh, blood pulsing, led to the special bed where I surrender my glasses, my vision, and gentle voices direct me to lie down, relax. Or like going up the 6th floor of a 100-year-old building, the original Otis, elevator with the accordion gate that clangs and the machinery that wheezes and clanks as it shifts to move my body on its tray, the sort of noises that make me wonder. When the elevator was last inspected, inexplicable, percussion between floors, and I can only trust. And taking a shower in that same building, the pipes clanging up and down the floors as hot water flows. Someone on the 3rd rattling a half-remembered rhythm on their radiator. A mouse scrambles behind a wall, perhaps to escape the suddenly hot pipe. The walls all close in, nothing to see, and no water either. It's like being that mouse, hiding in a tight cave while large cats sniff, trying to find the opening. Lie very still. Loud voices tell me to breathe or stop breathing. A time for everything, while my whiskers brush the walls. The cats sensed but not seen, nothing to do but wait and fear.
Mm.
Are we doing all right on time, Richard?
Yeah, a few more would be great.
I have 3 picked out.
Oh, excellent.
This one I just got in the mail from, it was published in Ocean State Review, and I got it in the mail yesterday, so I'm very excited.
Nice.
And it has
Nice.
nothing to do with disease. The ground is love we split open to plant, the work of growing the green to sun gold seed, our harvest to feed the coming year. Rooted and steadfast rises in soft, marshy spots, where rain rivulets between our hills, down and up. Always we are climbing or declining, sometimes together, most often apart. The soil is thin and needs a lot of attention to coax the seeds into plants, green, more weed than grain, no matter how long we go on hands and knees to pluck the unwanted from our earth.
Hmm.
This other one I did after seeing a oil painting in a museum. It's After Trees in Front of a Valley by the painter Simon Dennis. I'm not sure he's well known. He was born in 1755 and died in 1812. Painted world as if new, sun touched trunks and plain, dark air beyond. I know that if I stepped between, a valley would open, the trees would turn ordinary. But I stand back from the cool shadows, struck by the golden cast of tree columns between me and my end. Alone, I see the verdant edge, the precarious living in this light. The grass is sweet, the long day. And I am over 50, created, old, more than half my life flown.
Great, great.
And this last one, I worked out at Lucy Brock-Broido's table, and I had been kind of dabbling in poetry. Metsu was taught by Catherine Deputat locally, but I'm a serious poet today because of the pushing, the criticizing, the cajoling, the teasing, and other loving instruction that I received in those Cambridge summers. I miss her terribly, and I still have questions for her. And this was published in the Blue River Review. Old Eden. Fled my hands like frogs, leaping from rock to rock, while I, drenched in the chase, bled, dear and red, my own soil, like annuals crowding out callipygian perennials. The shadow of winter over all I was learning, but now they take flight. Frogs into swallows, one after another, freckle the sky and all out of reach. Thank you.
Hmm.
Jonathan.
Wonderful.
Splendid, Jonathan.
Yes, that was great. Wow. And everyone, you all muted yourselves. You are overly disciplined, overly polite. It must be the Puritan background that we find ourselves in. But in any case, wonderful to have you all here, and wonderful poetry by both of you. Thank you so much. And now let's see what's going on, what's cooking in the rest of the room here. I've got 8 people signed up for the open mic, and we're going to begin with Rick Ribstein.
I'm unmuted. Lily shoots
Oh, by the way, those were great. Thank you so much, Francis, Jonathan. I just loved those poems. Thank you. Lily shoots in March. Before the snows had ended, I wrote a poem about lily shoots in March. This was way earlier than ever to see lily shoots in this time of cold and gray skies. Instead of being upset that they were too early, knowing how that means the world is topsy-turvy, my heart leaped. I knew what it meant that they had come too soon, but the heaviness could not stop me. I scrawled a poem on a handy scrap of paper. The words came from joy itself moving my hands. These moments here at the ending of the world are so precious. They cry out to be allowed to dance like Miriam when everyone was homeless. I lost the poem. My wintry head would not yet admit the spring blooming in my heart. And now as I watch it die away, yet again, I keep the memory burning, the lost poem as warm as any I have kept.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. As I call people out, please make yourselves appear and also unmute. Up next, we have someone who is mother to someone very special here tonight, Helen Brophy.
Hi, Richard. I'm only his aunt. Yeah. And everybody was great. I could feel Jonathan's really bad experiences with his own and his wife and his mother's sickness. So it was very heartfelt. And Francis, his poems make me cry.
Me too.
Okay, so anyway, as I told you, and I have to read this, so I have to put the video screen off. As I told you, I've never been published anywhere. And mostly the only place I ever sent them was New York Magazine. And so this poem got the highest tier denial or refusal or whatever you want to say. According to Francis, they give tiers of rejection. Tier, T-I-E-R. And mine got a very high tier of rejection. So it's called, it's not really called anything, but it's about global warming. So I'm just going to read that. If all the leaves came off all the trees and the grass is burnt by a falling sun and the water dries up so the oceans are tiny ponds where flamingos turn white and fly only through night, if you are here, I have no tears. Everyone has deserted the earth. Global warming left us no hope, no fucking food. Excuse me. Scorched ground. The corn is rotted with dried up flakes, but you are here, so I live. My house is gone, the apple trees, and God knows what happened to bees. The shower trickle is cold. The water table is so low. My love, you are still here. Don't go. I cannot live. There is no bread. My clothes are threads. There's sores on my head. The rancid water leaves me dry. My love, don't die.
A much needed word. Thank you so much, Helen.
Keep writing.
Anyway, I have one other, or maybe even two, but one short poem that I just wrote.
Hold Only because you're the mother of one of the featured poets do you get this exemption to the rule.
Oh, okay, I didn't know there was a rule. Okay, but I don't have a name for this one either. Excuse me. My cat and I are fat. I can't regret that. When I eat a luscious treat, she wants some sweet rather. When I eat a luscious sweet, she wants some extra treats. We waddle to bed and bath, ashamed of our wide swath. Can't climb stairs or jump, soon both on an oxygen pump. We only have ourselves, supplemented with treats, of course, TV and fake mice, but mainly delicious sweets.
Thank you, Helen. That was fun.
Yes. You're welcome, Richard. Thank you for letting me say it.
Sure. And next we have Allison McCabe.
Didn't realize I was muted. Okay. Well, thank you, Francis and Jonathan, and thanks especially to Jonathan. I met him. I'm actually in California, so I have a Puritan background. I came from the East Coast, but I live in Berkeley. Jonathan and I met in a Martha Rhodes workshop online this summer. So
Nice.
jackhammer. I've got a headache again. It is not a hangover headache. I know that will make you think hangover headache. Maybe it's my teeth. I clench at night. My dentist tells me you do it at night. See, there are signs, she says. I don't see any signs. I just see my teeth. You're wearing them down like the water did the Grand Canyon. Sure did scare me. Made me kind of angry too. Like I can do anything about it. At night, you know, I'm asleep. During the day, I clench too. It doesn't take much. If you say anything upsetting, I tighten up. Please don't say too much. I'll clench my teeth. My jaw is so sore. Last night I ate a baguette, which is on the dentist's list of foods to avoid. That list really bugged me. I did eat an almost green, well, with a tinge of green, apricot. I got a horrid stomach ache. When I was 4, a little friend, a neighbor, was allergic to chocolate, and I couldn't believe it. That is all I remember from being 4. I used to think that meant something awful.
I too was allergic to chocolate and strawberries, and now I can have strawberries dipped in chocolate. Blessedly outgrew it. Next up, we have Carla Schwartz.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. What a great night of poems. And I'm going to read to you a poem that actually also was published recently in a journal called Lightworks. And this is called If I Visited My Mother's Grave. I'd ask her what she does all day. She'd answer, I talk to mommy. So I picture that sun-drenched plot of loam and worm at the confluence of New York's worst highways, my mother's headstone, kitty corner to her mother's, amidst the din of relentless traffic. My mother and grandmother, teacups full of pine rot and pill bugs, relive that cold, awful night in Gleiwitz, 38, that November night of crashing and smoke. And my Americanized mother asks, how could this? And her mother, wrapping her arms around her, answers in German, there, I'll get you out of here. And with one hand filled with my mother's, they reminisce the lugging, the trains, their host family in Belgium, the tumultuous ship crossing to Cuba. My grandmother, recalling how seasick she was, says, "Ach," but my mother reminds her, "We made it to New York, and you saved our family." Then, noticing me standing between their stones, they point out the wild strawberries at my feet, while the bees, buzzing through the roses, remind me how my grandmother once killed chickens so my mother could spend a summer out of the city, and there, in the fresh air, my mother trained bees to land on her thumb.
Hmm,
That's it. Thank you.
nice, nice. Next up, we have Pamela Bailey Powers.
Thank you so much. Before I read my one poem, I'd just like to go over some of the lines that have particularly spoken to me from each of you. So
Oh,
here
great.
goes. Tiny creek, what's been swept away, thistle and crabgrass. He was dead before, lemons, oranges, floating wheels, searching for fruit and crowns, a shrine to the bear. Before driving to the darkness, her mother stops for coffee every morning, still cold after. Break the ice. Thank you, Francis. And from Jonathan, Boston street so narrow, in the peach soft hand, the vet's sweaty palm. How fragile she was, completely sad. I tried to teach myself, waving a salt shaker. Watch the night, pelagic dark. Why is it not as easy as falling asleep? As I try to remember what I was, make me wonder, hiding in a tight cave. Love we split open to plant on hands and knees, as if now the grass is sweet, my own soil. Jonathan, thank you. Jonathan, it's such a joy to see you. We've not seen each other for nearly 2 years since we gathered at the off-season meetings at Jay Featherstone's. I miss you so. My heart breaks to hear all that you're going through. I send you comfort and love. And from Rick, I scrawled a poem at the ending of the world from Helen, and the water dries up, supplemented with treats. Allison, I've got a headache again. And Carla, I talk to mommy. And now I'll read my poem.
Hmm,
The poem comes from a book that I've written over the past 18 months, almost 2 years. I'm calling the book Gone Out to Walk in the Rain. Here's the poem. A pestilence, a plague, a reckoning bearing morn, as November slows in and the counted gone ever among us. Chilled and not quite right, outstretched along the fence lee, where the dieback shows in valley leaves waning vein, red berries abound. Looking toward the night's shifting moon beneath blue-black eye socket, stain clouds, the rains whipping up to coming on, sleep abides. How can it be that the years flee has fallen to the back, contracting around the middle, and clothing wooled and damp? Up the hillside, beneath the cherry stretches, a fox stares in the rain begun. How might one rise up amidst all this, take off the sodden coat, build kindling and logs into warm beneath the mantle, holding the faces and trinkets of a lifetime. Fingers thin in remembered holdings, an embrace lingers as though here. Chimes ring out across the commons. We, it seems, go there as rain gives way to snow. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Pamela. And what a wonderful reflection back on all the earlier poets. Wow. Up next, Pam Gem.
Beautiful reading, both Jonathan and Franny, and I loved both of them. I'm going to read a poem of Barbara's as well, because I was anticipating her book coming as well. So I'm going to read from Haywire from Rift. The moon seems real in its poverty, limitless sand and punctures, night tearing the sky into names of gods and goddesses. I see or do not see. I work on breathing. Let my feet be frightened, toes digging cold sand. No one will come for me. No one knows I have gone. The Pleiades, Orion's belt, dippers, big and little. As a child, I stood with them, as I stood with gravity, earth, water, and the blue star I promised myself I'd see when I grew up. The blue star kept me faithful. Let it all go haywire. Let certain fixed bodies turn in the perceived heavens, and other bodies also be slammed down, knocked down to crawl on the world I am bound to. So too, love, so too, heartbreak, fingers tapping on the breakfast table, the bed's made or not.
Thank
One of
you.
my favorite things.
Wow. Excellent. And now, Carrie Lohman.
Sorry, getting rid of a box on my computer. Jonathan and Franny, as much as I miss sitting around the table with you discussing one poem at a time, it was so great to hear bunches of them. Very powerful. And Jonathan, I think you should keep writing long. That vigil poem was amazing. So like many people my age, I'm looking back on my youth and trying to remember. This is a new poem called, maybe, I Lick Summer in My Sweat. At the Arboretum, Linda and I sneak through meadows of asters and ryegrass to hide from the gardeners on the slope of white pine near the Forest Hills gate. The grass blades slice our fingers, leave blood on fuzzy seed heads as we snatch handfuls to push through the chain link fence to horses indentured to the Massachusetts Biological Laboratory. Horses languid and deliberate in their patience, long eyelashes studded with August flies like moving glitter on a Mardi Gras mask. They nibble our meager oblations with velvet lips. They are so beautiful in this. They are Black Beauty and Flicka escaped from the page. We are girls lost in families, indifferent to stories' rhyme. Even then, we knew we could never be cowboys.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie.
That was great.
Good.
In our penultimate poet tonight, Thrassos
Hi there. Hi, everybody, especially Jonathan and Fran, whom I've missed from the group. The poem I'm going to read is called Lesson. Meekly they are sitting on a Saturday morning, passively, 7 strong, in folding metal chairs at Cabela's, a class on reloading cartridges, about brass casings, lead shot, powder, Hogton seems big, dye bushings, neck brushings, big game, elephants, and varmint bullets. Reloading takes care and patience, is inherently dangerous, explains the proctor, official with NRA pin and store vest. They're sitting meekly, like in grade school, and they look so innocent, so obedient, their paunches and beards and mustaches and baseball caps, their hands wearing their thighs, always visible.
Thank you. And last but not least, I'd like to share a poem as well. This is hitting upon the time period when I was trying to win a beer from Fran Lunney as we tried to get into Appalachia magazine. And while he was getting in and I was buying him a beer, this was what was happening for me. It's called Rejection. 1, I am sorry to report your poem doesn't suit my need for a single line, place, or incident in the life of a moth. Always read my publication. It could make a difference. 2, here you have one place and incident, but it doesn't take us far into a realm dark as Houdini's. I'm holding on to it for possible future inclusion, if you're open to some editing. 3, you should have seen me crying all over the steering wheel, but you didn't take my advice enough about the 3 instars. Perhaps you should think longer and write slower. It's not quite a fist. 4, I am perennially, perpetually, ridiculously behind in getting these things out. You focus firmly on the creature with phrases like wings weave thin air into moons and eye spots, but the last 3 lines don't give us enough insight into a moth's life. 5, although I read your submission respectfully and with care, I'm currently booked for the next 10 years. Good luck, sorry, cheers anyway. Thanks for considering our magazine a home for your moth.
What kind of rejection is that?
Richard, that was great.
Great, Richard.
That was great.
Thank
That
you
was so much fun.
for everything.
Reading of poems.
Oh, that's funny.
So what a wonderful evening of poetry and interaction here. And please unmute yourselves and declare your love for what has just happened tonight.
Oh, Richard, it was great. You have a very nice voice.
Well, thank you very much. I've worked hard on it.
Are you single? She's wondering.
I used to belong to something called Toastmasters. And
Oh,
you
that's
learn how
right.
to get rid of the ums and the ahs. Think quickly on your feet, that sort of thing.
Ellen,
Yeah.
is that your version of flirting? You have a very nice voice.
How easily it turns and turns and turns.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. It was really great night.
Yeah. Can I do a shout out to Linda? Hi, Linda.
Hi,
Hey,
Wendy.
Ellen.
And my family, Margaret, Michael, and I don't know who else is on the
Good
line.
job. Nice.